I'm Margaret. Hi. I run content marketing at Eventbrite, and I'm here very excited to talk to all of you guys today about event marketing and promotion. So welcome to all of you guys here. If that is not the topic of the panel you are looking for, this would be a great moment to just like grab a glass of wine and sneak out. Okay, we're all good. Awesome. So a couple of housekeeping items. Can you guys hear me? No. Yes. Before we get started, so we are filming this. That's Chris. He's filming this. Yay. So if you could keep sort of the side chatter to a minimum, because it will sort of mess up the recording. And also, if you could save your questions until the very end, that would be awesome. We have time allocated for that. And that way we'll get you a mic and we'll get that on our recording. Sound good? Yes, happy nodding. So again, the topic here is event promotion. And before we dive in and get all of our amazing experts up here on the stage, I'd love to share some findings of a recent survey with you all, which I think can really inform the conversation today. So, first of all, this survey is Eventbrite's 2018 Event Industry Pulse Report. So we surveyed 1,000 event professionals. We asked them all types of questions all over the US and Canada. And here's what they had to say about marketing challenges and tactics for this year. So first, how many of you guys here are really excited about your marketing and promotion budget? You literally could not spend another dollar. You have everything you need. We got one? Great, that's awesome. So the vast majority of you guys could use a little more budget, and we definitely saw that that was a pattern. We actually saw, when we asked people, what is your number one thing that you're going to spend on? It was marketing and promotion across the board. So 41% said, in fact, that in 2018, they're going to spend even more. So this is really relevant to this panel because we're going to talk about some ways that you're going to take that budget and spend it in the best way possible. Let's talk about effective channels. So we asked people, what's your most effective promotion channel for your event? And I was surprised to see this old classic email marketing was topping the list. 78% of the people who we surveyed said email marketing was their most effective channel. A little bit of a surprise as well, experiential marketing. Does everyone here even know what experiential marketing is? I'm like hard pressed to define it. But 24% said that these sort of experienced focused marketing channels were incredibly effective, so extremely or very effective. And finally, I wanted to talk about influencer marketing. So 33% of those 1,000 event professionals we surveyed said, I'm using influencer marketing today and I want to keep using it. Let's talk about social next. Ooh, one slide backwards. Great. So we asked people what was effective for them on social and what was a little bit less effective. And the pattern that we really saw across the board when it comes to different channels for marketing your event, Facebook is effective, LinkedIn a little bit less. So 57% said that they're using specifically, and this is important, paid Facebook to promote their event, whereas only 7% were using LinkedIn. And we found that it was the most commonly answered as not very effective, LinkedIn that is. So, final takeaway before we let everyone up on stage. When we asked people what was their biggest challenge for 2018, what's the pattern here? It's reach, right? So 90% said reaching new attendees, and 87% said reaching past attendees were among their biggest challenge. So however you look at it, it's all about reaching new people. So that was a tiny slice of a pretty massive report, and some of the people who created this report are in the audience right now. They're amazing. But we're going to send this to you guys after the panel. We have all of your email addresses. We're going to follow up with this free report so you can really dive into the data and let us know what you think. And now, without further ado, I'm going to welcome our lovely panelists up on the stage. Let's have a little round of applause for our lovely panelists. Beautiful. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello. I'll scoot up so I'm not directly behind you. So if we could start by introducing ourselves. So like I said, I'm Margaret, but if you could say your name and what you do at Eventbrite, that would be amazing. Start with you.
Thanks, Margaret. I'm Brendan. I run our global SEO strategy here at Eventbrite. I've been with the company for a couple years, and I'm really excited to talk to everyone tonight.
Hi, my name is Christy Huggins. I've been at Eventbrite for just over 2 years running social media. Before that, I was running social media for the New England Patriots, so I'm in mourning this week, but made it out just for you guys.
Hi, I'm Linda. I'm on the performance marketing team, and I manage the paid channels supporting the organizer side of the business.
Hi, I'm Tamara Mendelson. I've been at Eventbrite for almost 9 years. I ran our marketing team for the first 6 of those, and now I run an area of our business that's focused on the consumer side and generating demand for all of your events.
Hi, I'm Sheena Sharma. I manage a channel marketing team here at Eventbrite, and that means different channels like email, events, and bringing in new leads. My background is in events. Actually, I started out as an event planner and somehow stumbled my way into marketing, so I understand a lot of the challenges that event marketers face.
Thanks so much, you guys. Oh, am I still mixed? A little bit? No. Can you guys hear me? Or Heather's gonna come like, this is like the star treatment. Perfect. After all that miking. Okay, so now that we have introduced ourselves so beautifully and taken a look at some of the insights, I'm going to pick on Brendan first. So I'm going to ask you guys about some of your predictions for 2018 and how we can really put those trends into action. So Brendan, our SEO expert, thanks for joining us. As we all know, there's always a panic every time Google changes their algorithm. Seems like they like to do that all the time, and they don't like to tell us exactly what they're changing, so it can be really stressful for us as marketers. What's sort of the high-level, very strategic takeaway that event marketers should stay focused on amidst all this change?
Sure. So first I'll say if you're doing legitimate marketing, you should never have to worry about Google and what it's doing. So we never worry about Google here in the sense that we do legitimate marketing. So so that's one thing I wanted to say. So high level, there's probably 3 things I want to focus on tonight. So one is thoroughness. So this is a big thing for Google in 2018 especially. I'm sure we've all Googled something before. We've landed on a result. Maybe it doesn't give us quite the answer we were looking for. Maybe it was just like a small paragraph. And so then we bounce and we go back to the search results page. We look further down the page, we pick the one that we like, and then we get our answer. And so Google's actually paying attention to that now. They'll see you go to one page, bounce back. This is called pogo sticking. And so when they notice that, they actually adjust their results based on what your behavior is. So if they see that everyone's clicking number 4 and settling on that, then they'll move that up in the results. So that's kind of something that's pretty interesting, I think. And the point there is be thorough. Like answer the question that you think this person might be asking, and just be thorough in the content that you write for your site. Another one is featured snippets. That's another big thing that's happening in the SEO world right now. Featured snippets, to describe easily, is I'm sure back in the day when we Googled, we used to just see 10 blue links on the page. Nowadays, when we Google, we see an image carousel and videos and recipes and all kinds of crazy bling on the page. So Google is moving way more in this direction where they're putting just a lot of knowledge up front on the page. And what a lot of people don't know is that there's actually things you can do to influence you getting into that placement. So I would highly recommend looking at Schema. Schema.org is kind of a structured markup. It's like a standardized code that you can use that basically communicates better to Google what it is that you do. There's actually an events schema, which is basically communicating to Google, I'm running an event. This is the artist. This is the venue. This is when it's happening, for a music example. So those are things that feed into Google's understanding of what you do. And then last thing I'll say is mobile. I think we're probably going to talk a lot about mobile today. But Google has actually moved to a mobile-first index, which means when it comes to your site and evaluating it for quality, it's looking at your mobile version first. So instead of looking at your desktop desktop version and understanding, now it's looking at mobile and it's saying, is this a good experience? So with that, first of all, if you have a mobile experience, that's a step in the right direction. Then make sure it's usable, it's user-friendly. Responsive is always good over the M.dot version. And then lastly, speed. So make sure that it's fast. And there's some programs online that you can Google and find site speed tests and mobile speed tests, and they'll give you recommendations on how to make your site faster. So
That's awesome, Brendan. So I have a follow-up here. Are there any trends, thinking again on this theme of just there's so much going on with search right now, are there any trends we should just ignore for the moment?
Ignore voice search for the moment. The SEO community especially is all abuzz with voice search talk, and while it's very interesting, and by the way, I'm talking about like Siri and also like Alexa and that type of thing, it's definitely something I'm watching, and it's very interesting to me, and I love playing with my Google Home and giving it commands and stuff. But I think I read recently that it's like 90% of voice searches are non-commercial. So I believe the top two searches are call mom and directions home. So as marketers, we can't do much with that yet, but I think there'll be a time when we can capitalize on it. So we're just kind of waiting it out. I'm watching it.
Can't wait to capitalize on that. Thanks. So, Christy, let's talk about social. This is another area that trends change really, really fast, and it can be a little bit stressful to try and stay on top of them all the time. So my question for you is, what are some current trends that actually matter, and how can event marketers stay on top of them in 2018?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest challenges for events in general is that if people don't have full social media teams running their events, and even if they did, they couldn't do everything that there is out there on social. So while we'll talk about some trends, kind of my disclaimer is that I'm a big fan of doing a couple platforms well and really focusing where you think you can have an impact and where you have good content. So at Eventbrite, we don't have a Snapchat account. We never jumped on that. We didn't have the right content and it wasn't the right audience. At the Patriots, we had great content and it was the perfect audience and we were on there right away. So regardless of the trends, it's really still about your content and your audience and what you have to offer on that channel. That said, luckily, I think one of the biggest trends now is Instagram and Instagram stories, and that really is relevant to most companies, especially events, because they're so photogenic. People traditionally have been a little bit wary of that because you couldn't link directly through Instagram, but they've made some meaningful changes that make it a lot more relevant for events, especially if you're trying to drive ticket sales directly to, or traffic directly to a ticket page. In Instagram stories, if you have over 10,000 followers, you can use that to actually include direct links to your ticketing page or to your site or to other assets. So to me, that's a pretty meaningful change that makes Instagram a lot more valuable and a lot more of a long-term investment. So luckily, I really like that trend, and I think that's something that's going to stick around for a while. So Instagram is definitely a big thing to watch. I think the other big thing on social lately has been influencer marketing, and that's a big buzzword that can mean a million different things to a million different people, and you can take it in a ton of directions. I think the good news in that is that it's going to stay around in some form or fashion, and you can kind of dictate what that means for your event. I mean, influencer marketing has been around for dozens and dozens of years. We just called it, advertising, and it was paying Dwayne Wade to be your spokesperson. And now that person that you're paying is just taking different forms. And that could be someone with 1,000 followers who's really relevant to your event audience, or that could be somebody with 1 million followers who's relevant to your audience. And there's a lot of room to work with that in between. So that's something that I'm really interested in the next coming years. People are very more tuned into that lately. There's been a lot of talk about it. There's been a lot of content put out there through influencers, so people are a little bit more skeptical, which I think opens up some opportunities for people to be a little bit more creative with it, figure out who the real right influencers are for your audience, and target them a little bit more uniquely rather than just having people blast your content out to their audiences.
Thanks, Christy. Let's pass the mic to Linda and talk about paid advertising a little. So obviously, paid ads, increasingly, we have all realized as marketers that if we want to play, we have to pay, right? But the fear is always, am I spending my money in the right way? So my question for you is, how can people in this room think strategically about that money? I know it can be very expensive to use paid ads. So how can they make sure they're spending it to actually drive ticket sales?
Yeah, so I think the most important part to think about is choosing the right creative, and the right creative is the most engaging creative. So your paid ads are not going to be seen by your most direct followers or your most loyal followers, and so you really want to make sure that the content you put out there really grabs their attention. And a really effective way to do that is with video. I think in the last year, 90% of all video being uploaded and shared on social media was actually, or a lot of content was all video. And so the Facebook and Instagram algorithms are really prioritizing video in their news feeds. And so as an organizer, it's great to take advantage of that. When you're marketing your or marketing your event, video is a really great way to like highlight different clips or scenes from another year from your event, just to kind of bring awareness to your event and just kind of showcase to a potential attendee what it might be like to attend your event. Video can be really expensive though, so if it's not within your budget to like put on a full production, there still are ways that you can use Facebook and Instagram to create videos. So for example, both these platforms now allow you to upload images or small video clips, and they'll stitch it together and create a GIF or a slideshow, and it essentially creates a lightweight video for you to promote on Facebook or Instagram. And this is really customizable, and it's a really like easy and cheap way to add video as a part of your advertising. I will say that like something to keep in mind when you're creating this video is to really be conscious that mobile needs to go first. And so most people that see your ads are going to be looking at it on their phones. It's going to be a tiny screen. They're not going to have their sound on. And so when you're creating these videos, just be conscious of that. Make sure that your imagery is really high quality, and make sure that it really works in a sound off environment. And so one way around that with these slideshows is using a text overlay, and that's actually proven to be just as effective as using sound. And yeah, so kind of in short, use video, make sure it's super engaging. The first 3 seconds are really important just to grab people's attention, and make sure you're thinking about mobile.
Thanks. Tamara, you guys are so far away. Hi. So far we've talked mostly about digital marketing so far. So I'd love to hear from you about some other ways that event creators should try reaching attendees this year.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the trends that we're seeing, there's been a really big shift just in the last year in the way events are distributed online. And so I'll take a step back. If you think about where the majority of consumer traffic is online, it is, I think it's like 70% plus of time spent on the internet is spent on Google and Facebook owned sites and properties. And so if that's where your audience is, the question is, how do you get your events there? How do you make sure your events are appearing in as many places that are relevant to your audience across the internet? And so Facebook and Google properties are a great place to start, just because that's the vast majority of internet traffic. But then also thinking about your specific audience and where they are spending time online. And a trend that we've seen develop really just in the last 12, 18 months in online ticketing and registration is this idea of distributed commerce. And this is, to like not speak in super technical terms, has been enabled by advances in payment technology. And all it means is that where consumers discover your event online, they're now able to transact. So for example, we launched our integration with Facebook about a year ago, our distributed commerce integration. So now with one click, you can publish your event into a Facebook event. And then when a consumer is on Facebook and your event shows up in their feed, they can click buy tickets, and they aren't redirected back to Eventbrite. They stay within the Facebook experience, and with Facebook has done an amazing job optimizing that purchase flow. Within like 3 clicks, they can register for your event or buy a ticket, and it all stays within Facebook. But the beautiful thing about the way the technology works is that you still receive all that information. It's as if that person bought a ticket through your website or your ticketing provider. So you get all of the the data, the information that you would need to collect, and the money straight into your ticketing account. And so what we've seen in this on this path into distributed commerce is that conversion rates are actually double what they used to be when you would just redirect back to the ticketing site. And so for everyone that sees that event, double the number of people are actually transacting in the end. So it's an incredibly powerful lever. And so thinking about how, whether it's through partnership with your ticketing provider or other means, how to get your events into these places across the internet to make sure that they're showing up in the most relevant places possible and that transaction process is as seamless as possible has tremendous power and potential. And so at Eventbrite, we've been focusing on building as many of these partnerships as possible to the sites that matter, so that you don't have to actually think about each individual one of these integrations, but you just, you publish your event once and then it can get distributed. But I think at a macro level outside of Eventbrite, this is a change in the way ticketing works. It used to be a walled garden. It used to be all about exclusivity. But what we're really big champions for and where the industry is headed, like in so many different ways, is openness. And that openness of the technology, the sharing of information, allows for a much better consumer experience and a much more friction-free consumer experience, and ultimately more ticket sales and more attendees that you might not otherwise have reached.
Thanks, Tamara. Sheena, last but not least, she probably just needs the one mic.
Do two mics.
Always two mics. Yes. So in our survey, we saw up on the screen that email is still a really important channel for all kinds of marketers. But the question is, how do you actually get the most out of a channel that a lot of people are saying is dead?
Well, I don't know if email's dead. How many people in this audience heard about this event today from email? Did anyone get any email about this event?
Quite a few.
Okay, a
That's
few.
looking good.
Actually, we recently did an email benchmarking report, and in that report, it showed that 91% of people are actually checking their email every day. So I know we like to say, sorry, Christy, that social is the place where you need to be, and building your audience on social. It really is true that email is not dead, and people are still spending a lot of time on emails, especially if you're consumer events or business events. A lot of time is spent really managing your email inbox. So I think a lot of things that event organizers don't tend to think about is using email to their advantage. So you tend to think about your event is coming up, how can I use email in those few weeks before the event? But you really have an opportunity to start to build community and an audience around your emails. So you should really be thinking about, how can I use my social presence? How can I use my paid ads? How can I use SEO to actually build my own audience? How do I get more and more people to opt in and give me their email address so that then I can communicate with them on the cadence that makes sense for my event? So number one is about building your own audience for email. Number two is really that segmentation matters and frequency matters. So when I talk about segmentation, what that means is who you're sending an email to. If you're sending an email to someone who may have never gone to your event before, your message should be different than if you're sending an email to someone who attended for the past 3 years. So learning more and understanding more about your audience and then being able to speak to them in the way that is relevant to them is very important in email. And then in terms of frequency, it also matters probably not to send 3 emails in the same day about the same topic, but then also not to only send 1 email a month and then wait 3 months and send another email. So you really have to think and be intentional about the cadence and frequency of your emails. And then the final point I'll make that we've heard up here is mobile matters. So a lot of email providers like MailChimp or Marketo, whatever you're using, gives you that option to make that email look really great on a mobile device. But you have to think one step further and think about, okay, once they've read this email, I'm asking them to do something. And when I'm asking them to do something, I click on a link link, what's that experience? Is your website mobile optimized? Is your ticketing experience or registration experience mobile optimized? So making sure that you're thinking about that entire flow. So you don't want to lose them once they've opened that email and click through. It's super easy. You're on the bus, you're on the BART, and you close out that email, and you don't tend to go back and open and try and complete that purchase or that ticket. So you want to make sure that you're giving everyone everything they need in that moment.
Thanks to all the panelists for answering that question. Now it's time for the lightning round. So let's give Brendan a mic, just for fun. Yes, so each one of you are going to give one tip, and one tip only, your very best tip for how everyone in this room is going to sell out their event this year. Brendan, go.
Okay, mine's fairly tactical, but very important. When you're writing content, especially across different websites, vary your content from each site. So in other words, when you write your content on your personal website about your event, and you write the description, there's a tendency when you use Eventbrite or a lesser competitor, just to copy the content from your original site and paste it on every other site that you use. But actually, what happens is Google will sometimes see, especially if it's duplicate content across multiple different sites, it'll actually sometimes dismiss some of them because they think that it's too similar. So what I strongly suggest, and I know I'm giving you homework here, but if you are writing, if you have content already on your website and you're using it again on Eventbrite, for example, just switch it up enough so that Google isn't saying these two are exactly the same. That way you're taking up more search engine real estate with a couple listings as opposed to getting one or two of them dismissed by Google.
Thanks. Christy?
I think the biggest tip on social is to just be really intentional with every post that you put out there. There is so much content on social, and we're constantly being bombarded with so much organic content, paid content. I know I personally, when I finally find something that I'm like, all right, I want to unsubscribe from that, I'm going to unfollow them, I like it because I'm always trying to kind of whittle down my accounts. So being really intentional, not getting caught up in the idea of, I have to post 3 times a day, or I have to post something a day, and just posting something to get it out there, but having an intention for every single post, and then making sure that there's a really easy action to take from that. So I'm amazed how many times I see people post things like only 3 days left to buy tickets, and they don't include the ticketing link. So it seems really obvious, but making sure that you make it really easy for people to take the action that you want on that post. And sometimes that's not clicking a link. Sometimes the purpose of the post is engagement, and you want them to be excited about your event, but then make sure that post actually generates that, and make sure that post is targeted at that instead of just blasting out your ticketing link again. So be intentional and have a really clear, actionable CTA on every post.
I love it. Linda?
I would say that when you're running a paid campaign, you really want to be testing. And so you really want to be testing and iterating on your creative. That said, you don't want to do too much. So you don't want to start running like 10 different creative over a short period of time and not really have enough data to know what's the best option to go with. I'd say start off with 4 or 5 creative, 4 or 5 versions of a similar creative, and just see how that runs. Facebook actually makes it really easy for you. So if you're running Facebook creative, they actually have split tests where it'll automatically split your audiences into 5 non-overlapping groups. It'll create 5 different and slightly different versions of your creative depending on what variable you want to test. So that can be anything from the copy or the image or the CTA. And then it'll run for about 4 days to about 2 weeks, and then once it has enough data, it'll tell you automatically in a report which one does best, and that can really inform your strategy. So continue testing, and then you'll figure out what the best creative is for you.
Awesome. Tamara?
Yeah, I guess my tip would be about timing. So when you look at aggregate Eventbrite data, you see a trend that just like repeats and repeats and repeats, and that's like when there's an on sale, when tickets first go on sale, when registrations first open, there's a spike because usually you guys are sending an email or promoting the event to your followers and to your audience, and so you see this spike in ticket sales, and then there's this like trough of death where everyone feels anxiety, and then usually a week before there's another spike, and that's because like all of a sudden there's like this urgency to put campaigns into action and email a lot and kind of put all the all the effort into marketing campaigns, and to the point where I think we were seeing that over 50% of tickets, it might have even been like 2/3 of tickets, are sold in that week right before the event. But your job as marketers is to try to space that out, right? And so, interestingly, we've seen data that shows that when you try to space it out, is actually very effective. So right now on Eventbrite, we're experimenting with a product called Promoted Listings that lets you boost your listing in search results and in our email newsletters and things like that. And not surprisingly, the majority of campaigns are launched, I think, 10 days before the event, or within 10 days to the event start time. But campaigns that are launched within 20 days, so even just 3 weeks out from the event start date, see double the number of sales from those promoted listings. And this is like not rocket science. It makes sense when you think about it. Like the longer a campaign runs, the more opportunity people have to see it. And as we know with marketing, people need to be reminded, and they need to check their calendars. They need to think about it. They need to see how things are shaking out with their circle of friends or their colleagues. And then ultimately they'll make a decision. But the point is to get in front of them early and often, and to pull all of the timing of your campaign activity up front, because that will always pay off in the long run.
And Sheena.
Yeah, my point was on a similar vein of use the trough of failure to your advantage. So you know that you're going to see a spike in on sales at on sale, and you're going to see a lot of ticket sales close to the event. How can you use email in that down period, and how can you start to think about building this idea of urgency or getting people excited about your event? You don't need to have a selling message in every email, but you need to start thinking about how do you get in your attendees' head and get them excited about going to that event. And the second, I'm totally breaking the rules and adding a second tip. Something that we've actually done here at Eventbrite is use people's previous intent to remind them that they were interested. So if someone opens your email but they don't purchase a ticket in that session, use that information 2 or 3 days before the event to send them a reminder. Hey, it looks like you were interested in this. Do you still want to come to this event and take advantage of that moment where you're trying to figure out what to do on Friday night? And oh yeah, I did look at that event. I'm going to go ahead and make the decision right now to make that purchase. So really kind of thinking about how do you remind people of things that they were interested in doing.
Great. Does anyone else want to sneak in a second one? You guys are okay? Awesome. So we're going to open this up for questions now. And I think Heather has a mic. So please raise your hand if you'd like to ask our lovely panelists anything. I have the mic, but I will share it with you guys. Oh, Sheena will share it. Very nice. Questions?
So I'm going to kind of put all of you against each other. I know a lot of organizations have smaller teams than at Eventbrite. So let's say someone has a team of 2 or 5 people, maybe one person. Where should they invest their time and why?
Who wants to go first? Christy?
Since I have the mic, I'm
Defend
going to say
yourself.
social.
Defend social.
But that definitely is a big event planner challenge, right? People don't have huge teams where there's 5 different people managing everything. I think one of the things that we've seen be successful is batching tasks. So we're writing social for organic copy, for organic social, paid social, potentially emails at the same time, kind of getting the most out of one person that you can and being able to repurpose that across channels. I think paid is becoming more and more a necessity on social. I would like to say that that's not a primary focus, but we're really seeing that more and more that is the go-to on social. So I'm partial to paid and organic social. Anybody want to make the case for another?
I would say it really depends on your audience and what's been most effective for you, because depending on your community and where you've had the most success reaching them, that's where you should be disproportionately putting your effort. So, for example, if you're a professional organization and you have a lot of success with your email list and you have a lot of success. I know we said that like LinkedIn ads weren't really effective, but let's say you have an active community on LinkedIn, that's where you should be disproportionately putting your effort versus let's say you're a concert promoter and you're trying to reach a certain audience that you know is on Snapchat or Instagram, that's where you should be disproportionately putting your effort. And I think if you don't understand where your audience is, that's like the first and most important, highest priority order of business, is understanding where are they spending time online, how are they consuming information, and where are they finding out about the things that they ultimately, commit to doing. And so ways to do that are even just like adding it into a survey question in your registration flow or post-event, whatever it might be, asking people, how did you find out about this event, or what sites do you read, or groups are you a part of to get information about this topic, and using those opportunities to like gather information, almost like market research, to figure out where to spend your dollars and ultimately your most precious resource, your time of you and your people.
Anyone else want to add? We're good. Any other questions from the audience? I thought I saw a hand. Yeah. We'll run a mic over to you.
Hi there. Unlike the esteemed panel, I've got gray hair. And I think the people I'd want to be talking to do too. So the SEO, I guess that's important. The social, well, I don't know about that. The paid, I'm confused about my pennies going out to all kinds of areas. And the emails, you brought up a good point for me personally, is that I was so excited many years ago when I first started getting them. Now they're kind of junk mail, and I glance through it. So I'm just wondering, away from the millennials, what kind of advice do you have for cutting through all this noise, getting your message out there to people like me? Thank you.
Well, I'm going to make a case for social again. There certainly varies by platform what kind of audience is on there, but there are over 30 million people over the age of 55 using Facebook, and 25% of internet users over 50, which is obviously a subset of people, are on Instagram. So increasingly, there actually are a lot of older demographic on social platforms, not necessarily on Snapchat and not necessarily on some of the newer, trendier ones, but Facebook and Instagram actually are a really good way to reach people. I think the big thing, and Linda can talk to this, is targeting. If you are doing any paid social, you can get really granular with who you're targeting. Even organically through your page posts, you can target certain ages, certain locations, certain interest levels, different demographics. So I think there is a case to be made for social in some cases, but obviously you want to, in theory or ideally, have a more well-rounded approach so you're hitting people in a lot of different places, as Tamara mentioned, to make sure you're getting them where they're most active.
Yeah, just to add on to that, paid can really be effective if you really know your audience. And so if you're trying to target a very specific set of people, if it's like an older demographic, if you know their email addresses, for example, you can upload that directly and target only them. And so you're only paying for like their eyes to see the ads. So it doesn't have to be kind of like a widespread, like all audiences campaign. You can get very, very specific with the targeting these days. Yeah, and lookalike modeling. That's a good point. So a lot of the platforms now, you can actually upload your own data, your CRM list, and then create lookalike models. And so they have a lot of data points about what kind of that set of audience looks like, and they'll mimic it with other people. And so with that, we've actually found a lot of success in our own ads with just seeing how effective that has been. Yeah.
Yeah, as a last note I would add, we have a report on marketing to baby boomers specifically. More and more events are finding that they think they want millennials, but it's actually the baby boomers who are a more valuable audience to them in terms of attendance at events and spend at those events. So follow up with me after it, and I'll hook that up for you. Question?
This one's directed mainly to Sheena, discussing email. You mentioned before that if the marketing platform doesn't have to have a selling point each time, but reminding them of the excitement. I come, as I mentioned to you before, from more of a B2B perspective on this. So what other strategies would you say you would use in those email platforms to avoid the unsubscribes, in addition to reminding them of the excitement?
Yeah, definitely. So unsubscribes are something you have to keep an eye on. I think I actually have started to see the trend where people aren't really unsubscribing. It's really the risk of marking you as spam. So then you're not actually even getting to their inbox. So I know that a lot of people monitor their unsubscribe rate, but you also need to monitor your deliverability. Like, are you even getting to people's inboxes? So that's kind of just monitoring those metrics. But in terms of what you do is relevancy, like making sure that the content and what you're talking about is really relevant to that audience. So the way we tend to think about it is what's the primary call to action and what's maybe a secondary call to action. So most of our messages when we're talking to our audience is really around, hey, we have this new piece of content. Come and see and learn more about this piece of content. And if you're interested, come get the ebook and get more information about that. But what we're really trying to do is put value first. If someone's opening that email, you want to make sure that they're learning something, and then ultimately you'll get something back if you've built that relationship with them, but you should be really thinking about that person and that who's getting that email first. Ultimately, we do all want to sell tickets or hit the goals that we want to hit, but thinking about it from a longer term perspective of building that relationship.
Anyone else?
This relates to mobile conversation. I've noticed even on some marketing campaigns, getting into people's text messaging seems to be the trend. And that seems to be their main motivation, is to get you to opt into the text. Can you address text messaging?
Yeah, definitely. So I know, especially when you're thinking about an event or a conference that lasts multiple days, like being on someone's mobile device is really important. So there's a lot of new tools out there that will allow you to get people to opt into that text message. I think the other thing that's even more important than email with texting is relevancy. So like you probably only have a very short amount of characters that you can use in terms of text. So being really intentional about what that message is. And I think discounts, like people, when they first started following on social, it was like, I wanted to receive a discount. When you sign up on your email, for most things that you get, it's because they promised you a discount. So thinking about how can you use texting in a way that's very intentional and tied to your event. And if you're going to offer a promo, if your early bird is about to close and you're going to open a higher price ticket, creating that sense of urgency. Because I don't know if I would necessarily use text messages to say, hey, I have a new blog post about my event that you would want to read, but really thinking about what message is right for what medium.
Other questions? Yeah?
So I have a general question about how to use the Eventbrite.com to do the marketing. You guys introduced email, Instagram, Facebook, Google. That's great channels for event marketing. But I also noticed that the Eventbrite.com is also has a huge traffic in the United States, and all the data shows that 1/3 of the traffic comes from the Eventbrite website itself. So what are the social features you guys can think about how to add on to Eventbrite.com in the future we can leverage on? Thanks.
Yeah, so that's something we are actively thinking about. There are millions of potential event attendees that come to Eventbrite to look for things to do when they don't necessarily have a specific thing in mind. And so we are thinking about the entire journey, right? What brings them to Eventbrite in this first place? Is it that they have a relative or a friend coming into town for the weekend and they're looking for something fun to do? Or is that they're ready to take the next step in their career and they're looking for a networking event or business event to push their careers forward? So we think through all of those use cases, and then how do we connect them with the right event? So we're right now in the process of launching a lot of features that are rethinking the way they can discover events on Eventbrite, how they search for things, how they can find, how we can connect them with the right events. Some of the things I think that are particularly relevant to this audience is one, the promoted listings, which I referred to earlier as an experiment that we're running with a product that allows you to target specific interest groups. So if you know that your event is, let's say, a food and drink event, you can target people that are searching for food and drink and make sure that your listing is coming up in search results near the top. The second thing that we're thinking about is ways to allow our audience to engage with you more. So something that we launched on our Android app that's soon going to be coming onto web and to our Apple iPhone app as well, is the ability to follow an event host such as yourself, so that if they like your content and the kind of events that you put on, they can follow you, and then we will give them automatic notifications when event hosts such as yourselves are publishing new events. So hey, I love the programming at the Commonwealth Club. I'm going to follow follow them on Eventbrite, and every time they publish a new event, I'll get notified, like, hey, did you know, this speaker is now coming next week, or whatever it might be. So taking a lot of the work off your plate to help build those connections between our audience and you. And so that's just the beginning of the kinds of things that we're launching. If you have an Android device, you can actually see it. You could search for yourself in your own profile. And I think as that feature picks up speed, so now we're seeing, the top, we just launched that feature like a month or so ago, the top event creators are getting, a couple hundred followers now. But like over the next couple of months, that'll become a couple thousand followers, a couple tens of thousands of followers, and you can imagine you can start to amass a really big audience that you can communicate with. And then we're going to invest in tools that allow you to start understanding who that audience is, how to better communicate and target those, or how to better communicate with them and target those messages. So these are all the things that we're thinking about and building proactively to help you reach more audience. And then the back end of that is giving you the analytics and the insights into that. So it sounds like you're already looking at your channel reports and seeing that Eventbrite or our apps or whatever it might be is driving a lot of traffic and ultimately ticket sales to your event, and that's great. But we want to peel back the onion one more layer and say, hey, did you know these are some interesting facts about your audience? Not only are they buying tickets to your events, but here are the other types or categories of things that they do to give you ideas of where to reach more people like them. Like maybe you didn't know this, but your audience disproportionately goes to yoga workshops, and you never thought of targeting yoga workshops on Facebook, but now you can do that. You can target people that like yoga workshops because you know that now about your audience. And so these are all things that we're going to be investing heavily in over the next year or so, and we'll keep you posted and up to speed on as those things launch.
I think we can take one more question from the audience. Yeah, right over here.
This kind of goes for everybody. I'm just looking for suggestions. If an event is entering a new market or trying to reach a new demographic, what would you suggest is the best way to reach that audience?
I can take a shot on social.
Don't everyone go at once.
Yeah.
At least on the SEO side, I would actually, what I do is look in that specific location and do a Google search for events or whatever type of category it is, and actually look at the search results and see what's ranking there. Are there local websites that aggregate a lot of events? Maybe you want to be featured on there. Are there other people in the space that you want to partner with? I would just look through those results and see how that might differ from other markets, because I think it could be pretty telling, and your strategy might change a little bit depending on what you see there. So.
Well, yeah, and I think, yes, I will run online. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. We talked a little bit about targeting on social media. If you know the target audience that you're going after, you can do those lookalike audiences of, let's say you have a great event in San Francisco, you can do a lookalike audience of that group of people and then match them with people that would have similar profiles in New York or wherever you're scaling your event. So I think there's a lot of opportunity when you talk about targeting on social media. And then we talked a little bit about influencers, but that can definitely be a good way to kind of open up new areas, especially, again, if you know who that audience is, if you have an established event and you know the type of people that they might be interested in, you can take those learnings and then translate that to a different location.
Yeah, and I'd say if you want to be conservative about your paid spend, maybe start off with something like search. So build off of your PR, kind of like different press. With search, you're really like getting the people who really know that they want to find what you're offering. And so search is like a cost per click, so you're really not paying for impressions either. So it's really the people who are really intending to find out more information. I'd say something else too is that maybe remarketing, and so those lists are the audience that are people that are already coming onto your site, people that are a little bit further down the funnel, and so you can use paid to really kind of push them over the edge.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is co-marketing. So I've seen this being really successful for events as they enter into new markets, is finding a marketing partner, whether it's a local publication or a local resource group or whatever. It depends on your category, right? That is entrenched with the community that you're trying to reach. And for that first year, really do heavy co-marketing with them. Give them like your VIP Platinum sponsorship package just in exchange for pushing out their event to your audience and helping to help you understand the audience landscape in their new market. Like, they can be incredible, not just like media vehicles for you, but actually partners to help you understand how that audience might differ than the audience that you're more familiar with in another location.
Yeah, my point was going to be on co-marketing or partner marketing, getting access to those partners' email databases and doing email shares. So they have something, they're partnering with you for a reason, offer your database to them where it makes sense, and ask for access to their database so that you can start to build people and get people who are interested in your event.
Thanks. We have one more question that came from the checkout form online. So surveying event attendees, what questions should I be asking? And then to build off of that, how do you mine past attendee data for optimum results?
I can take it first step because I was talking about surveying before. So surveying is a double-edged sword. If you do it in the registration flow, if you ask too many questions, you might be jeopardizing the number of people that actually make it through your registration flow. So think really carefully about what are the most important things that you want to know. I think that asking that question, how did you find out about this event, is one of the most powerful questions you can ask, because that will give you real-time feedback into what is actually resonating with your audience. So for me, that's like a crucial survey question. The second thing that I think is always interesting to ask is, what do you hope to get out of this event? So like, what was it in the value proposition of my marketing that convinced you to buy a ticket, right? If you can understand that, then you can start to think about, okay, how can I take that message and make sure it's showing up in my social ads, that I'm developing content that reinforces that, things like that. I think those two questions up front can be hugely illuminating and actually very actionable for you to understand where to be putting either more dollars or more attention on developing content. The other area that I think is used less frequently is post-event surveying, but can be just as powerful, and then doesn't jeopardize your conversion flow. In fact, maybe gives you an opportunity to reach back out and engage with your audience. And in those types of questions, you want to understand basically customer satisfaction. How satisfied were they with your event? And especially if you gather the information up front on like, what are you expecting to get out of this event, or why are you most excited about this event? On the back end, you can say, did you get what you were expecting? Yes or no? And that can help you tailor, future events. You can also ask, like, what was the most unexpected value that you got out of this event? And using all of those types of insights can help make your future marketing all that more powerful.
Great, thank you. I think that's it for our questions. So we will adjourn from the stage. Let's have a round of applause for our moderator. For our moderator. Thank you. And also for our panelists. Why not? Feel free to grab another glass of wine and mingle. We're so glad you guys are here.